Let's have a look at corporate governance. It was mentioned by the speakers earlier on as well, but what I'd like to basically ask now, why do organizational structures matter? Not just for startups, but also for traditional companies. So, and let me basically share with you a little bit of the work that we've done just recently at INSEAD. So, governance matters for any business, whether you're a startup or whether you're a 150-year-old family business. It matters for any business. Introducing formal policies, processes, and procedures to guide your activity. You establish a framework, a solid foundation for your business, which will latest do you good service when the next crisis comes. And the next crisis surely will come. I'm a statistician. I can tell you it probably will not last as long as the other crisis. So bottom line, where you're focusing on is leveraging your strengths, and you want to identify your weaknesses and mitigate those weaknesses as well. Thereby, you're creating a company that is robust, resilient, and resourceful. And ultimately, that's why we're all here for. We're not fly-by-night, one-trick pony companies. We want to hand our companies over to our successors, to our children, to the shareholders that we brought in. Now, what we did recently at INSEAD, we took a closer look at the value of organizational structures in organizations. And we basically invited, by now, we created a questionnaire that we pushed out to close to 400 companies. So by now, we started in Asia and the Middle East, went to Latin America, and just 10 days ago, we published our survey specifically on European companies. And you will all receive the link to the survey. Obviously, in true academic fashion, we give everything away for free. So we interviewed over 120 companies in Europe, in over 23 countries, anywhere from 10 to 150,000 employees. So a pretty broad spectrum. And you may wonder, why does INSEAD focus on small and medium enterprises and family businesses? And there's a reason for that. And we've done that for over 30 years. So number one, those businesses contribute 70% of the global businesses. They contribute 70% of global GDP and 60% of global employment. So those businesses do matter. They do matter, they drive a lot, and if I go into innovation, you would see a lot of innovation comes out of those small and medium enterprises. Now, what we did in our research, we wanted to give all participating companies a score. A score, how do they perform when it comes to corporate governance? So think about a scale of 1 to 10. Are you a 1 or are you a 10? And to do so, we basically asked them to fill out a pretty detailed questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, we measured 6 distinct attributes. 6 attributes that basically cover anything from business growth capabilities, organizational design, access to capital, how have you dealt with succession, have you thought about succession, how do you basically build your talent pool, and so on. So 6 distinct attributes that we measured. We then brought all those attributes together and came up with one score. What we also wanted to find out, in the history of a company, is there a certain time when when that score makes a distinct jump? And we actually found, especially in Europe, some interesting data. Naturally, in Europe, a lot of the companies that we engaged with were family firms. That's just the nature of the beast here in Europe. So in Europe, we found that firms led by the 3rd generation and older in family firms have a significantly higher level of organizational structure, a significantly higher level of corporate governance than those led by the 1st and 2nd generation. And you may say, well, this is not surprising. They have been around longer, so there's a selection bias as well. Of course, they're doing better. But that was not it. What we also found, out of those 6 attributes that you remember that contributed to it, the one that contributed by far the most to those that had made the jump to the higher level, that had become what we call champions, or those that had not made that jump yet in terms of corporate governance, the ascendants. What contributed the most to it were board and leadership position. So again, governance. The champions in the group, those with a higher governance score, over 85% of them had professional boards, had non-executive directors, and had clear processes on how to rotate them around as well. In the ascendants, less than 60% had professional boards. So it matters. Let me just add, in the interest of time, very quickly, the one part that really drove, the second part that drove the gap in terms of institutionalization and governance was networks. Those companies that had leveraged their network, they appeared to be a network, were doing exceptionally better than others. So, let me summarize the result from our global research to date. Businesses that survive the startup stage, the high-risk early stage that every business starts off with, and progress, survive, are the ones that manage to establish good corporate governance and become very institutionalized. Ultimately, every business needs to grow up. Strong governance principles are clearly the road to longevity and to sustained value creation. Clear organizational structures and professionalization of businesses matters, and it can only be achieved through active ownership. So active owners will engage, will ensure that corporate governance is implemented, and will ensure that there is a value creation that is not just for today, but for the long term. I'm getting stuck. So I trust this gave you a little bit of a glimpse of this brave new world, a little bit of a sense of what to expect in the next decade, and maybe some ideas on how to engage with those startups. Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to the awards and hopefully to meet some of you over cocktails later on. Thank you very much.